he is the best school district we can be in fighting bullying. We're also adding a gentleman who said he was looking for
My name's Laura Dodd. I'm a candidate for the 44th House District, but more importantly, I'm a mom. And I'm watching the tragedies of violence that are happening in schools throughout America. And it seems like every single person, doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats, agree that we need to have good mental health services for our students. And if mental health is the problem, let's work together to fix it. The Waterford School District has the surplus of money, and they need to budget for social workers. They need school psychologists. We need support staff to help from very little teeny tiny kids all the way up through high school to make sure that if a child is hurting, that there's someone they can go to for help. And that honestly doesn't take that much money. It takes investment, and it takes investment in the kids. And if we're not willing to invest in our kids, there's really honestly no point. Trusted adults in schools is a great way to help lower the risk of violence. Kids need people they can talk to.
No gavel tonight because I know I'm not going to need it. I'm going to open Board of Education meeting with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All members are present with the exception of Member Bartley. Move to the approval of the agenda. Agenda will stand unless any changes. Next we'll move to audience comments. There's a room mic, so if you have comments, just give them right there.
I'm sorry, John.
We don't do this approved.
They're just approved. This is a special meeting, so the agenda only shows public comment, so I will take non-action items and then action items as public comment. Just so you know, and you'll correct me, but our budget is exactly the one presented at the last board meeting. The reason I say that is because if we had changed the budget, it would have required another public hearing. We're not having another public hearing because we've not changed the budget. There also appears to be concern about funding for bowling. I'm not sure where the concern is, but for the budget we're ready to adopt, there's Title IV money of $92,000, which is allocated for the next school year for anti-bullying intervention. We have social workers working during the summer, which is being paid for out of the next school year's budget. We've added a second social worker to each secondary school. Now, this isn't necessarily for anti-bullying, it's for all mental health services, and that additional cost is continued in the 2018-19 budget. more importantly, everybody in this room realizes how much we focus, this district focus, the community has focused on bowling. Well, we just got our data report from the Michigan Department of Education, which actually shows that our incidents of bowling are down 28% from this just completed school year to the previous school year. My experience is when you put a lot of focus on something, your reports of incidents go up. But it's good news that it's on its way down. So, there's a room mic if you want to ask your questions. You can do it just from where you're standing. So just give me your name. I'll go to the green cards first. So Julie Joslin.
That would be me.
You still want to comment? I don't know if I answered any questions. But you're
I
welcome.
just want to further comment, so if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Okay. Can I just do it
So
from
she'll
here?
hear you from there.
All right. Good evening. My name is Julie Joslin. I'm a 40-plus year resident of Waterford, a graduate of Waterford Mott, a member of the Bullying Task Force, and a single mother who has 2 children who will be attending Waterford Mott in the fall. I've been a probation officer for over 20 years, and I've worked in the criminal justice system for 23 years. I'm here tonight to express my disappointment with the board failing to allocate money for additional programs and support staff for students. After many people felt the administration was failing to meet their children's needs, 2 meetings were held where angry parents and upset children got together to inform the community via the newspaper and television about their unhappiness with the way discipline was being handled in the district. The community, the victims, and their parents were informed that a task force would be put into place and changes to the current policies would be made. We were also informed that past incidents, which parents and children felt were previously disregarded, would be further investigated. Despite having 2 task force meetings, nothing has been done to aid the victims or deal with the bullies. Now there is an urgency to pass a budget which appears to have money allocated in all the same places as last year. On paper, there is no money for extra programs to counteract bad behavior, counseling services for those who need it, training or an increase in support staff for the kids. Classroom sizes are at an all-time high, which leaves teachers little time to teach, much less play referee and counselor. In response to that, the district laid off 6 teachers and reduced 2 positions to part-time. I would encourage the board to look closely into the expenditures and ask themselves, if my child was being bullied or needed extra help due to having a disability, would Waterford School District be able to handle my child's needs? Clearly, given the negative media coverage we have received, the upset parents on the Stop Bullying Facebook page who are still complaining about the district's inability to address the problems with bullying, the answer is no. Over the past 20 years, I have dealt with domestic violence cases, the victims, the perpetrators, and most of all, the children. During one of the task force meetings, we were taught that children as young as 8 who have displayed bullying or inappropriate behavior are over 50% more likely to commit crimes as adults. Of those children, over 50% will abuse their partners, their spouse, or their children. The statistics make sense when you think of them in terms of dealing with adults with whom you barely know. However, while sitting in the task force meeting, I related the statistics to my own children, their friends, and the children in the community. To look at it from a parent's eyes rather than a probation officer's eyes is startling to say the least. You as board members can make the district safe for all children, and in the process, you may alter a child's future, that of their children, and that of their partners forever. I am strongly requesting that the board reconsider allocating more money for programs and additional support staff to address the bullying and disciplinary problems in our school district. We, the people of Waterford, elected you to protect our children, and increased education, counseling, and programming are the only ways that that can be done.
Thank you. Next would be, and a reminder, there's a 5-minute time limit.
I had a question about what you said. I wonder if I could get you to answer that question without it being in my comment time.
I'll make a deal, make it your comment time, and we can go from there.
Oh, all right.
Do you want to go next again? or-
Yeah, I can.
I started coming here the first time I came here because I was watching it on TV. And I seen parent after parent line up and talk about the issues they had with their kids. And I had daughters, and I hear the same exact issues that I heard with my daughters in Pontiac schools, and that was 35 years ago. And truthfully, my wife had a lot of those issues when she went to school. I'm not going to talk about when she went to school because it might be on TV and I'll get into some kind of trouble, right? So, and I've been told that this budget contains the same money, same funding, same programs as the last time. Now, I've just been told that, it's hearsay, I don't know and I can't read it in the budget. But I'm concerned that if we do the same thing that we've always done, we'll end up with a problem. And I came from a world not, are there school teachers in here? How many school teachers do we have in here? Do we have parents of bullying children in here? I came from an environment that's different than yours, but the same, in the sense that I was in charge. I worked in an environment where I was responsible for roughly between 4,000 and 6,000 people. I had a staff of roughly 100 people. And a young lady came to me one day and said, I want to go to the day shift because my husband is being brutal to me and I'm afraid he's going to shoot me. He said he's going to shoot me. And of course I said, well, we have rules here, the same rules it's always been and probably always will be, and they'll be gone. They'll be here when I'm gone. And you're like a new hire, you just can't go to the afternoon or to the first shift. And she's angry and she left and I didn't think any more of it till about 30 days later when a very good friend of mine, his son was there as an intern working in the evening at night. They went out at night, he opened the door to this young lady, walked outside, and her husband shot them both dead in the parking lot and shot himself. Every day of my life since that day, there's very seldom a day doesn't go by that I don't question, could I have done something different? I knew the next day I did something different because I remember I told her, I'm the wrong guy, you should go tell the police. Now what I should have done is went and told the police, and I didn't. And I feel guilty about every single day of my life. And I'd hate to have you guys in the same situation. I've come to several of these board meetings. I got more information tonight from the superintendent about what you have been doing and are doing to deal with the bullying issue. But I'm not sure it's enough. It doesn't sound any different than what they were doing in 27 schools this year where children were shot. Doesn't sound like that much more to me. So, and I was here at the last meeting we had here, and I literally watched some of you folks vote not to allow us as citizens and taxpayers and parents to be part of the budget process and determine where the surplus was going to go. So I guess one of the questions I have is, what do you have that's more important to do with that surplus than taking care of protecting children above and beyond what we do to try to ensure that we can wipe out this bullying in the Waterford school system? With some of the money, I don't say all of it, but enough of it to do something different, enough of it to find ways to address the issues that you deal with every day, whether it's class size or, I see hostility more every day now, and I see people less tolerant every single day than I did 5 years ago. And I'm not the only one in this room that has not become almost accustomed to people bullying me or trying to bully me around silly things like where they belong in line, or whether they open the door, or whether they like the clothes I'm wearing, or the color of my skin, or how old I am. So I'd like to be a part of that change, and that's why I start coming to these meetings, and I'd like to see you guys not be in a position, any one of you, because again, I'll guarantee you it will last you the rest of your life if you don't do all that you could do to help, and something, God forbid, happens. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next is Mary Brewer.
That's me. I am a Waterford School bus driver, and I'm just here to say that I would fully support more funding towards supporting the bullying and the bullier, so to speak. We need to have the parents more involved, and we definitely need that. Funding would also provide a social worker or counselor so that parents could meet with them also on a flexible basis with the children. Encouragement and recognition we need to do something because it doesn't happen just in the classroom or in the school. It's happening on the buses also, which makes us part of this and brings us all into this. We need to find something that works for these kids, and if it means taking money away from something else and moving it over, that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Next is Mike McClure.
Thank you. I've been an educator for 35 years. Specifically, my main job was as a counselor. I was in a vocational tech high school. My specialty was working with special need kids. Word special needs includes special ed and kids that are in situations like we heard over here. I have a very intimate knowledge of what's going on in young kids' minds. I respect Ken's comment. The world is very difficult right now. Our children are needing trust. They need support. I looked at this budget. Now, let me go back a second. I worked in 12 school districts on Royal Oak. I interfaced with over 20 high schools. This is tough for me to say. I agree with Ken. I'm not here after anyone, but I'm very concerned about the way this board functions. I'm very concerned about the lack of civility. I'm very concerned about Robert's Rules of Order. I'm very concerned about how some are shut off. I came to this meeting from 180 miles. I think the three of them. I watched them. I think the board can do better. I'm going to demand the board do better. I had one of my a good board. Someone suggested recall. I like that word because if this board doesn't start functioning, they work for us. There will be accountability and recall. Now, let's go back to the issue. Why are we not concerned in funding this issue? I agree. I heard the superintendent say something, and I asked him out front. If there's going to be a vote tonight, I hope there's some other people in this audience that are going to try to persuade some of these people on the board not to accept the budget that I saw at the last meeting. This budget is not right. Now, I'm very perplexed now, because if we don't turn a couple of the board members, saying it very frankly, or I hear something about a better allocation of funds, I'm going to drive 180 miles north and find out that this budget was approved. Now, a lot of you haven't had the time to look at the budget and have knowledge of it. But why aren't we dealing with a support system that these kids need? Remember, I was a counselor. I served on the executive board of school counselors for the whole state. I know what I'm talking about. I don't understand all the dynamics of politics. We don't all have to get along. But when it comes to the kids of this community, you better step it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ken Douglas.
Good evening, members of the board, administration, and I want to thank everyone who came in solidarity tonight. So I came tonight, along with my fellow community members, to express my severe lack of concern at the attention that's being given to the issue involving measures taken to deal with these issues surrounding anti-bullying policy, sexual harassment, and mental wellness. It's most concerning because it's something that involves our children, which is always, it's always a matter of vulnerability to us. Nobody wants to see things happen to kids. And I personally have addressed the board previously on this matter in meetings in the past. But I'm especially shocked at the lack of tangible actions taken. A task force was assigned to handle the aforementioned issue. I got to hear anything or seen anything substantive, nor more disturbingly have I heard of any funding to be committed to the issues we're addressing this evening. Part of the reason why I'm so alarmed with this is because it appears so little has changed in the school district in relation to how these matters are pursued. I've lived in Waterford Township for 22 years and moved here when I was 14 years old in 1996. I'm a graduate of Waterford Catholic High School, and I can personally attest to many of the experiences that have been reported by these children because they're also part of my own past experiences. And these situations could be best described as pleasant. One such case was when I experienced sexual harassment for a period of about 6 months in my sophomore year during our World Studies class. A female classmate repeatedly groped and made lewd comments at me during this time for a period of 6 months. And little was done by the teaching staff or administrators to really address this concern even when I had reported. So the assumption that was presumed at the time was that because I was a teenage boy, that somehow this was all welcome attention for me. When I can assure you no consent was present. It wasn't until her displays of harassment were disruptive and not the harassment itself that any disciplinary action was taken. This was in 1998. So my reflection on this episode in relation to this is that no one really took action because no one really wants to break away from staying in their lane, or to be clear, not to disrupt business as usual. Business as usual, that idea that says stay complicit, duck your head, and get through it. Business as usual also says, in this case, that positive peer influence is the way to go in working this out. Positive peer influence would solve these problems. Positive peer influence existed when I was a student, exists with the current student body, yet the problem is still being made. EPI only works in an environment where the messaging is clear, that one should not adhere to business as usual, that one shouldn't stick up for themselves. That requires a very different kind of training. That's what ultimately I found very puzzling about all the things that have gone on with certain members of this board and administration approaching this issue. We have seen parents, well over 100, give their story that their children are being harmed by the current situation to the toll of a 9-year-old that saw fit to commit suicide rather than confront another day at school. And the response with this board hasn't been to confront this issue with a sense of leadership. The task force was formed and we got to hear any report of its influence on policy going forward. Some members of the board have pushed for funding to support kids only to get ostracized by allies of business as usual. To such a point that a recall of that election was threatened upon. This chain of events, as it presents myself to this, says that many people on this board would be just as willing to dust this set of issues under the rug rather than confront it. Therefore, we have come to solidarity today, organized in one clear way. We want funding to be provided in this school year budget to reflect the reality of the issues in our schools involving bullying and sexual harassment. We demand that a reasonable amount of funding be allocated in the budget to properly support social and emotional services. I will yield the remainder of my time to our next speaker, who, like all of us, demands nothing less than this. I've heard that to some measure from every speaker that's spoken thus far. And I will say this, if the board cannot provide for such funding, I'm offering that we find leadership in the community that will do so.
Thank you. Matt McClure.
My name is Matt McClure. I've been a resident of Waterford for 42 years. I attended Chamber Adams, Mason Junior High, and Waterford Mott. I was a graduate and I earned myself a scholarship. I owe a debt to Waterford Schools, and I was able to attend Women's for the Blue Ribbon winner at Scholastic Awards. I was president of the National Honor Society. Person for the senior and junior show, MC, and had about homecoming calls, and in general, I've been active in the community all my life. I consider my duty to Waterford to be a debt that I owe to Waterford, and I donate over 1,000 hours a year of my time that can't be allocated for myself to Waterford. So I feel that the reason that I am that is the man that spoke earlier, my father, and to the deputy for Waterford. So I really, I've been to meetings for about a year now, and I was entrusted to monitor the meetings, to report back what the meetings were like, both at the school board and to the township. And I really thought that this was going to be a job that was going to be pretty dull, and it was just going to be me taking notes, but that's not the case. I've been pretty disappointed to see actually a little bit on both boards to some extent, but I guess I'm learning what board politics is, and that's good for me because I happen to have my name on the ballot one time, not for the school board, which is an issue that I want to discuss too. With the campaign that I was on, we knocked nearly 25,000 doors in Waterford in just a few months. And one of the major issues that I've heard from the people, direct from the people, is about our schools. And I'm confused how it is, and I don't want to make light of anybody that's had bullied. That's a real issue that I have. It's dear to my heart too. And I think that everybody has to live with an environment in the schools and learn, and they don't have to think about these things. But I'm going to let those parents have their time to speak that narrative, because it's more personal to them, because they currently have kids in schools. What I want to say is that when I'm looking at the other side of politics in Waterford, and the major issue about why we can't have people move to Waterford is our schools, that affects the entire town. And you know why it affects the town so much? We don't have a Main Street. Waterford schools, and this weird anomaly of what Waterford is, without the wall, this is our central cultural center. This is where people learn to interact with people. This is where people learn to be adults. We're not learning it on Main Street or in jobs and high-income commerce, where we have all sorts of interesting destination commerce. This is where we're learning to be adults. And what I've witnessed in some ways isn't exactly that. And I have my thoughts too, and I think a lot of people have seen it. Sometimes I haven't been mature adult things, but you know what? I'm not sitting in the board, it's not my responsibility, but as a person who's been in the district long enough, I find it to be my responsibility, because I was raised by a good family that's been in this environment their entire lives. The things I've learned from my parents, I insist to be additional funding to what it's been from years past. There will be accountability. This isn't, we can organize this, we can keep organizing this, we can hold the board accountable to less done, nothing additional added. We can look that up. We can find that information. And there's enough people here that are qualified enough to do that. So I ask, please allocate more money towards social help for the kids.
I'd like to
Thank you.
have an addition. This is my son.
I understand. I got more people.
I'm going to
I
go
understand.
forward. We give to the community a festival. Our family.
Sir, I understand.
Dare to Inspire Festival, we've done it for 5 years. That's the kind of commitment that the two of us feel to Waterford Township. Thank you. Go to the next speaker.
Dave Remus.
Who's next?
Dave.
Thanks. I guess I'll be included in my 5 minutes. I want to say thank you to the board for allowing the public comment. I also want to say thanks for organizing the community event on June 12th, I think it was, where there was some activity with the some of the things that the board has promised and the superintendent has promised about making things public and having the way to track improvement. I haven't seen that yet. I've emailed the board, I haven't got the response yet. I've talked to more than one member, but I haven't gotten that feedback yet. And now after listening to one of the task force complain, I understand why that is, because I don't really feel like there is any real improvement. Through the community meetings and the different things that have been discussed, I've learned how to live in Waterford. And I think it's a sad state of affairs, quite frankly. But I have shopped the schools, and I've gone and I've looked at the different schools. Because as I said in one of the community meetings, we have a Wild West environment in our schools. We have, each school seems to be run by the administration, and the administration of those different schools. There's the experience of the children in those schools is really dependent upon the administrators of that school. And in one of the budget meetings earlier, there was a concern that we have lost administrators in Waterford. And it's sorry to hear. But I'm very grateful that we have some great administrators. And I've moved my kids outside of what's normal, outside of my home schools, to go to those schools where I feel my kids will have a better chance within the schools. As has been already discussed, cultural change needs active and very persistent, consistent actions in order to affect that cultural change. And right now, I don't think we're doing that yet. I don't know if it's too early, and it could be. This is cultural change, and social change takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think that if anything that the board takes away from this is, one, the community will support you with a budget change to allow for the allocation of budget for these different programs. That's, and how do we define those? The task force, hopefully the emphasis will be placed on that so that the recommendations can be followed and that we can actually affect that positive change. So that's, I forgot the second. But I'm emotionally invested with my 3 boys here in Waterford. And you have my commitment that I'll do my best to support you as well. But I really entreat you to do what's necessary and allocate funding to programs that will help affect the cultural change. And make Waterford, as has already been stated, change.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the Board of Education? Give me your names first, sir.
Darwin Spacey. I have 3 kids that went to Waterford School. As far as I know, none of them were victims of bullying. My younger daughter and the oldest boy were good athletes. I had a middle boy that I was quite concerned about because he wasn't athletic. His coordination was a little off. Talked a little like with a list. And I was worried about him. He had a sharp personality, and I think the older brothers and sisters helped too. Now, some people will say, we'll see there, he did it. I consider myself lucky that he had those social skills. I don't think it's exactly anything I taught him either. I think he was just able to deal with that, but not all kids can deal with that. And I'm always worried about him getting bullied. Now, I've done some campaign work for in the primary here, going around to doors, and I really don't have a feel for what's going on in the schools. I really don't know what's going on. My kids are real old. I've gone to 2 doors, probably knocked on 50 homes, and 2 of them are getting bully stories. And one woman said her son came home. He looked. I saw him at the door. He was probably about 10. Came home crying because everyone told him he was going to be deported. Now, this is a biracial kid. They're not even Mexican, or like they're born here. And he came home crying, and it just like. It's bad. And then I had another woman pretty much saying the same thing, about this deporting thing. as far as harassment. And he hits kids really hard. I don't know where it comes from, but it needs to stop.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? Name, please.
Leah Langlois. I just, as a very quick, hello everybody. I'm a resident in Waterford for so many years, already 20 years. And I'm coming for a background education for my parents, since my mom and she write special books for special needs kids in Panama, and then 100% Hispanic. In 1999, I was a Spanish tutor for Kettering High School. And for me, it's very important to have a lot of communication at school, but I think we have to educate parents like me and everybody else to understand what is the meaning of bullying and what we need to do next to address the situation that is causing the problem for the children in school, because a lot of things that happen at home with their parents. Now, it's been a couple situations through the year that I went through with my children, both of them, and I believe, like, if you guys are very concerned about our children, something has to be done. I'm part of the task force as well, and it's very disappointed because we have a couple of meetings and it hasn't nothing being done as far as my concern, like what we're gonna do next. That's why you have a group of parents and a group of other people mixed together, so that way we can enforce ourselves and we can make sure our community is gonna do better day by day. But it's not gonna happen overnight. So for me, budget-wise is very important because kids, they need services in their school to make sure they're okay mentally, so they can. I'm so upset right now. I'm trying to put my words together, and I'm very upset. It's like more like disappointing for anything that is being talked and talked and talked, and nothing hasn't been done. And with all my respect, I just wish you guys the best of luck in the next election, and because we all have the rights to vote, and I just hope in some point, like, really think about, it's not about the money, it's not about your position, it's about the children. And you know, the kids are the future of that community, and that's the most important thing. They're so precious, and I just want everybody to understand that is talking about money and budgets. I totally get it, I totally understand. But come on, we gotta do something now, because it's gonna be too late. It's already late for so many families up there already. They lost their children. There was a 7-year-old committed suicide. Are you kidding me? But you know what? The bullying is creating another bullying in our society, which is the suicidal. And bullying is a big word, but it's the cyberbullying, and we have to educate the parents first. Because now when somebody says something about the other person, now they say it's bullying. No, it's not. It's inappropriate to say something about another child, but it doesn't mean it's bullying. So we have to educate the parents so we know, so we can educate our kids very well. And I'm just very disappointed, and I just hope from here on we can get some resolution and we can get something going on, because I just hear a lot of talking and we haven't nothing done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board?
Wood from the hallway, Mr. President.
Whoever it was, I'll get to you next, but if you step in, I'll make sure I get you next. You can stand, please.
Oh, God. Lisa Kane. I have 2 children in the district, and I'm happy to see many administrators here who were very supportive to my children. And my youngest has had some struggles in the year. It had nothing to do with bullying. His is very much internal, and he doesn't really need anyone else to make him feel bad. He usually feels bad all on his own. And these folks have been very supportive of my child. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because I don't think you guys get that enough. And I would like to say thank you to you for showing up tonight for this fun meeting to get yelled at again. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Becky Lesh, Waterford resident of over 20 years, former parent of over 20 years, school bus driver and employee of the district, president of the Michigan Education Association for the transportation, food service, and custodial maintenance for Waterford schools, and the coordinating council for Waterford Coordinating Council for Michigan Education Association. I have a few things I would like to say, but to begin with, I feel it's a violation of the Open Meetings Act that you have over 10, 12 people standing out in the hallway and you cannot be heard. Those that were here right at the door could hear you, and I'm not being able to hear those at the table or anybody that is in that end of the room. There's a cafeteria in this building that would hold all of us, and I think that you really should consider recessing and moving there so that everyone can participate in the part. That being said, we have made great strides. We have made great improvements to the Waterford School District, as well as financially and emotionally and socially for this district. However, after our spring experience of how many things are going on for our children in the anti-bullying section, as well as the emotional and mental side of our students should always become first. Whatever we have to do to find money, find resources, even if it can't come from money, finding resources from our community, our county, our state, and our national associations. Our association has offered several things to the district. Those are free of charge. We need to take care of our employees' mental health and social wellness as well. It's not just our students, it's become a community-wide situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I make a quick motion here?
Is that an option?
Could I respond to the last speaker one
Hold on a second. Is that an option?
To move, I don't believe it's, is it, do we have chairs set up there? You can stand.
There's enough space for everybody in the board can sit behind the tables, right?
No, I don't have one.
You know, I'm not gonna win in this issue. I apologize. If you followed our meetings before, the last budget meeting had a handful of people. We had building presentations, had a handful of people. When we have these special meetings for special issues, we're lucky if I get 3 administrators. So I apologize that, and it's fine that you picked this meeting to come, that there was no anticipation that we'd fill this size of room. So,
Okay, point of order. Point of order, can I just make one comment? We're gonna move. I want to respect the comment of the previous speaker.
and I'm not sure I'm not sure I've called on you, sir. I'm not sure if I've called on you. But if you could, if somebody could tell anybody in the hallway who wants to come in, they're welcome to come in.
Sorry, you guys.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board?
I'm next.
You've already spoken.
Can you come sit down if you'd
I'm
like?
not sure this is safe with the fire marshal.
I was gonna say, are we sure that we're not violating the fire code right now? I mean, the last thing I wanna do is violate the fire code.
You'd be the last one to go.
I assume there's nobody outside who wants to come in and address the board.
If you're in the hallway and you want to hear, come on in the room, please.
If there's a fire or something like that. How many people can be in capacity in this room?
I don't know. The officer does not know.
This room right
Maybe
here.
people who don't vote in
God
Waterford.
forbid something happens.
So we move to new business.
Can I get a motion? I'd like to make a motion that we do take a recess and move to a room that can facilitate everybody who wishes to be here and possibly not be violating any fire code.
I would second that for the safety of the public that's here tonight, sir. This is a safety issue, sir.
If it can be quickly done, we can move. I think it's the right thing to
Don't
do.
vote in Waterford quickly.
Can we have discussion?
Jane, are you able to? It's not gonna be quick.
Well, we have to be safe.
Yeah.
Safety is important.
What side of the issue you're on?
Press is counting the people.
6 more here.
Okay, we'll adjourn for 10 minutes and head to the cafeteria.
I can't wait to see what office it is. I can't wait to see what office those people are selling.
I am not going down on the floor, because if I get down there, they'll never get me up.
All right, Arm, we'll get you a chair.
My hair on that cat. I know. You're getting all cozy in there.
They don't want to do anything. No, you didn't.
Well, they're gonna make chairs.
Yeah.
Take some chairs. Take the chairs.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to squeeze it up, so if you want to go through first,
This will be news at 11. I had a front row seat too, and I'm probably still gonna move that.
Yeah, I'll say, bring that out.
Okay. Everybody's got plenty of room?
To answer your question.
Everybody out in the hallway? We'll be back in session. Is there anyone who didn't address the board who'd like to address the board?
I did.
You've been called. I appreciate that. So then we move to President's recommendations. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the superintendent's contract of employment with revisions extending the contract through June 30th, 2021 to maintain a 3-year agreement. I so move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any comments or questions?
I have comments, sir.
Mr. Torres?
I just have to, as a disclaimer, say again, with regard to the superintendent's contract, the evaluation process for the superintendent, when that was conducted, we did not properly utilize the MASB tool that we adopted as a board. The board president at the last meeting did admit that it was his fault that the process was expedited this year. It was expedited to a 6-day process. Per MASB guidelines, it's required in the tool that it at least be a 3-week process to 4-week. To condense it or to bring it down to 6 days is not an effective way to use the tool. It does not make it effective. And that is not me, that is actually the Michigan Association of School Boards' own specialist that was actually assigned to Waterford School District. There was a comment made at the last board meeting. This actually was up on the agenda, and the superintendent's contract was not passed. And there was a comment made at the last board meeting that it was people, utilizing a technicality or driving in their heels, and that is not so. I would say let's look at our own students. Would you want your child to get a grade from a teacher if you were not able to effectively look at all of their work? We were given 6 days to do a process that is generally is recommended to take 3 days. If a teacher were to give my own student a grade by not thoroughly going through the work, I would be pretty upset as a parent. Because how do I know that my student has met those benchmarks? How do I know that my student is actually hitting the marks so that they can be successful when they graduate? And we have to look at it like that with the superintendent. We have to make sure that he is hitting those benchmarks and we are able to look at the information to get a firm grasp of where he's at. the tool that we used. The tool indicates that it's to be a consensus of the board that sits with the superintendent and reviews the information. That was not the case in this situation. There was a closed session which was supposed to happen, and only 3 board members participated in that closed session. There are 7 board members. So if there are 7 board members and only 3 participated, then you didn't even have a majority. So we have effectively negated the rubric that we would use as a teacher. So for that reason, I myself was not able to effectively go through and evaluate the superintendent because I did not have the opportunity to sit with the other board members. And 2 other board members at least were in the same boat. So I do appreciate, Mr. Board President Himmelspot, you taking ownership for expediting the process so fast, but I do think that you owe Mr. Wunderlich an apology, as well as the parents in this district. Thank you.
I guess the one thing I would like to know, and I believe the contract's going to get approved. He did get an effective rating, and if you have an effective rating, I don't see any reason why you would not approve the contract. I guess I would like to know exactly why it was expedited so quickly. In every year we've done this, it's never been done that way. I feel there was a reason behind it, which I don't know what it was. I think it's only fair to those board members and to the public to know exactly why it was done in 6 days, especially after we had communication from the MASB saying it was wrong to do it that way. Again, with the contract, it's going to get approved. I've always questioned why you continually give a 3-year contract, especially when somebody's been talking about maybe not even being here for those 3 years. As far as the night that it happened, we went into closed session, and I personally, myself, during that meeting, my phone was blowing up with texts, and as soon as it got done, I looked, and my sister's husband was literally dying as we spoke. She lost a son a year ago, her only child. We lost our mom in August, so basically I'm the only family she has. So I immediately left to go be by her side before he passed away. Yet at the last meeting, John, you criticized me for leaving that meeting. You've never even asked me why I left. I have other people here tonight who I thought were friends who actually called me out on Facebook as playing childish games and leaving without even giving me the courtesy of asking me why. I went to be with my sister before her husband passed away, yet not one person asked me why before criticizing me. Yet there's people who are getting threatened with recalls for asking questions, but not the other way around. I would really encourage people to look in the mirror as how they've handled it. Again, it's going to get passed. We might as well vote on it. I have no problem. I do agree with Mr. Torres. I'm upset the way it was handled. I actually we got the information on Friday night. I had no printer. It was 150 plus pages. Megan Roberts actually delivered it to my house on her way home on Tuesday afternoon. So I basically had 48 hours to review the information once it was given to me. That's not fair to me. It's not fair to this board. It's not fair to Dr. Wunderlich. It's not fair to this community. And so we can go ahead and vote. It's going to get approved. Again, the board voted to give Dr. Wunderlich an effective rating. So I will stand by that. If the board voted to give an effective rating, that's what the board voted. But I would love to know why we expedited it so quickly. What was the reason to do that? And I asked that if you could answer, that would be wonderful.
Mr. Patricia? I can't do one at the last meeting. His contract is up June 1st. That's when we have to renew his contract. Our most important thing that we do as board members is hire and fire the superintendent. His contract says June 1st. We as board members have to know these things. I agree with John Paul, 6 days is not nearly enough to evaluate someone. That'd be silly to think that we could evaluate someone in 6 days. I meet with the superintendent once a month. I'm evaluating him constantly. If there's things or concerns that I have, the way we're doing it, how we're doing it, when we're doing it. And he's accessible at any time. I have his cell phone number. I've called him. I'm asking him questions. He's been available. To me, that is very effective. He rated himself as effective. I disagree. I think he's very effective. Some of the things that we've done in Waterford are, I truly believe, because of him, and we're very lucky to have him. The 3-year contract, I haven't always agreed with. Again, over the years, I've come to understand it is because administrators have 2 years. You can't have, if you have infighting, you have to have the superintendent has to have the upper hand. He is the boss. But again, with politics, if you have an equal amount of time on, someone can blow things up. He's the man in charge. He's the one that gets a longer contract. He needs it for protection for himself and for his plan for our community. And that's why he does it. But again, the reason is the June 1st contract date, which I said at the last meeting. These are things that we have to know. We know his contract. I have a copy of it in my desk at work. Everything is the same on it, but that was explanation. Mr. Himmelsbach had gotten it to us a little late, but again, it was still, if I had concerns, I would have shared them with him throughout the year. I have had a couple issues, but I've dealt with him, gotten answers, and again, he's, I think, highly effective.
Just a couple of notes of clarification. The motion before us is to add an additional year to the superintendent's contract because he has now just effectively used up one of those years. It is not to approve his evaluation. While I understand and recognize the concerns that have been raised, I also want to make sure that it's clear that we didn't break rules in doing this. What MASB puts forward are recommendations. They're not, it's not required, it's not rules, it's not wrong, they're recommendations. And as we said, each one of the board members meets with the superintendent on an ongoing basis. Certainly we meet at least once a month, and I pick up the phone or I send emails all the time if we have concerns. That is a continuous process of evaluation that happens, not just in that time frame. Additionally, relative to this recommendation that sits before us tonight, we have had the packet of materials for more than a month. So if you did have concerns relative to this recommendation, which is different than the approval of his evaluation, you have had time to review them, a substantial amount of time. I just want to thank Dr. Wunderlich. This is an opportunity for us to celebrate how much has been done under your leadership. It's an opportunity for us to recognize you, to acknowledge the fantastic things that have been put in place, the fact that those things aren't always easy, and that we run into, as many of you here can attest to, we had a big issue this year. We looked at it head on. You led us through that head on, putting together a task force, making sure that we were putting things in place. You have been leading this district in a stellar manner, and I am grateful for your leadership and happy to have this opportunity to celebrate you and to thank you for your service to the Waterford School District.
I just want to address the June 1st issue that was raised. We all are aware that the contract does have to be approved by June 1st. Thus was why I had inquired back in April when I hadn't received any information about the superintendent's evaluation. We do evaluate him all year, but it is only fair that we utilize the model in the correct way. And there are specific points that are in that model that the superintendent takes a lot of time. He gives us a binder this big. I think Mr. Piggott mentioned it was 174 pages. It specifically states the points that he is hitting, the marks that he is hitting, because we cannot possibly recognize all of that. And I understand that Ms. Sutherland indicates that it is a recommendation, but it is a best practice put forth by the Michigan Association of School Boards, an entity that pours a lot of money and resources into educating school board members because they realize how important of a position they have overseeing or helping with the direction of the schools. And it is the most important decision we're going to make. One of the most important decisions that we make is hiring the superintendent. Ms. Sutherland is correct to the effect that she indicates that this is about his contract renewal. But to me, the evaluation and the contract renewal go hand in hand. If you are evaluating somebody, you are first determining if they are effective. And then if they are effective, you are going to continue their contract. So for the reasons that I set forth, I have a problem, not with the work of Dr. Wonderlich, not to discount anything that he's done in our district, but to the effect of the process that Mr. Himmelsbaugh has taken responsibility for and expedited. This is my third superintendent evaluation, one of which Mr. Petruccio was the board president, and it went seamless, perfect. I was informed, the board was informed, we had all of the information, and I think Mr. Himmelsbaugh should at least give the audience, the community, and Mr. Piggott an answer to his question as to why the process this year was expedited to 6 days.
Any other board comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 5-1. Superintendent's recommendations, Mr. Piggott.
Superintendent's recommendation 123-17-18, reduction of teaching personnel. Administration recommends reduction of teaching personnel on the list below, consistent with the applicable provisions of the Michigan Teachers Tenure Act and Board Policy 3131. Accordingly, the teachers listed below shall be notified in writing of the layoff effective June 30th, 2018. I so move.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any comments or questions? Sure.
So, how do I phrase this? So there is a strong possibility that several of these may be called back based on additional resignations or retirements.
Yes, resignations, retirements, and
And
student.
student enrollment. Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Torres?
Let me ask you this. There's 6 people on here that we're looking to cut from teaching personnel. Is there a 100% possibility that all of them will be brought back?
I can't answer that.
Okay. And a comment that I'd like to make, one of the issues that was brought to the forefront at the beginning of the meeting was a lot of talk about the situation with bullying here in our district. We all have had a trying past 3-4 months, going back to March, with everything that occurred. I stated at the last board meeting, I went to every single one of the community events, as difficult as they were, heard all of the stories. With many of you, I was on the phone until 12:30 at night, talking to you about your kids and what we could do and how we could be better. I talked to teachers, I talked to bus drivers, and one of the things that I heard from teachers was smaller class sizes. It would allow them an opportunity to better educate our kids, to control the situations that are happening. And for me, when I look at this, a cut in 6 teachers, to me, this goes directly in contrast to the idea of lowering our class sizes, because we're going to have less teachers. And for me, that is something that I firmly believe we shouldn't be cutting these teachers. We need to keep these class sizes manageable. We need to even move forward with reducing them. I know there's been talk in the past about the fact that we don't have an unlimited amount of money, but we do have an amount of money. And it comes down to what are our priorities. What are we going to spend our money on? And for me, there's nothing more important than spending the money on our kids, taking care of our teachers, and making sure that we're going to allow those teachers who are also going to be evaluated as well in order to keep their jobs, that they can be effective in helping those students hit those marks. Thank you.
Mr. Piggott?
And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I could be. But when we had our study session about the budget back in April, I believe, weren't we told that there would be absolutely no layoffs this year, that all of the teaching reduction would be based on attrition, retirements? We didn't?
No.
Okay.
I was not at
special study
Yeah.
session,
Yeah, keep doing.
but I've never,
It might not be, and again, it might not have been said.
I've never heard that.
Okay, I just thought, I had been under the impression that was said, so if it wasn't, like I said, I thought it had, but maybe it hadn't. I don't want to say that it was because I didn't remember. But I know in years past, we have had upwards of 25 to 30 people on this list. Obviously, we would like to have 0 people on this list. When we did have 25 to 30, a lot of those people did get called back. Of course, if there's one on there, that doesn't give them a lot of sense of easiness, you know. They're on this list, they're basically getting a layoff, and so they go through a summer wondering if they are or they are not going to get called back. I do agree, our enrollment is down. I heard Mr. Petrucci say it, so I'll bring it. When you have less students, you know, just when we closed the 4 elementary buildings 4 years ago, nobody wanted to do that. We all had a hard time doing that, but it was something that had to be done. We had a lot less students. So I really wish this list was at 0. I understand it's happened most years I'm here. I'm really hopeful, crossing my fingers, that these people will be called back. I agree with Mr. Torres that I would like to see lower class sizes. It seems like so many people, parents especially and teachers, talk about, boy, if we had lower class sizes, what greater work we could do. And they already do great work. But if they had, you know, a few less kids and they could devote their attention to more kids and give them more attention, how great it would be. I would love to be, and I mentioned it at the study session, I would love to be a district that we really go out and we really push hard to be the district in Oakland County that has the lowest teacher to student ratio. What a great way to try to bring in families to Waterford, that our teacher to student ratio is the absolute lowest in Oakland County. What a bonus that would be. And, you know, maybe we can find ways to do that. Maybe that's something after this budget tonight we can really concentrate on looking at in the future of something to do, you know, with that. But like I said, I get it. There's 6 names on here. We do have a big loss in enrollment, and it's better than what we've had in years past. I wish we didn't have to do it, but I am hopeful that these 6 names will be called back sooner than later, because I'm sure it's a lot of stress to not only them, but to their families, to their children. And I think there's at least one on here who's actually a Waterford resident. Maybe there's more, I don't know. But it would be very great if we could call them back sooner than later.
Just for clarification purposes, we are not looking to increase class sizes with this reduction. This is a corresponding reduction based on our projections of student loss. If that does not come to fruition, then these layoffs will not be necessary. And so we're not increasing class sizes with this change. And every board member has a difficult time with this. It is very hard. It is a very hard thing to do. So we need to be looking at the financial stability of our district, and that's why we try to keep our class sizes in alignment with our enrollment, and that's what this is doing here. So, thank you, sir.
I think that we found also in past, as long as that I've been here for the last 10 years, 99.9% of the time these teachers are recalled, maybe even in the next month, you know, whenever we have our next meeting, because we'll get additional resignations or retirements that haven't come in yet. And so I think the chances are more so than not that eventually, hopefully confident that these teachers will be recalled.
Mr. Torres, you want to comment?
Yes, and just for clarification purposes, we are also not reducing our class sizes. And additionally, the financial stability is something that we always look for as a district. And It is our responsibility as school board members. But then again, it goes back to priorities. Where are we pouring our resources into, and where are we utilizing our monies for? Thank you.
Well, just to be clear, because you said that twice, we all want to put all of our money in what's best for kids, and we all intend, when we have,
And don't lay off teachers.
well, or we can give our teachers a much deserved raise and keep our class sizes the same. And that's what we voted on, that's what we've gone forward with, we've already had this conversation, so you're trying to make some of us, excuse me, I'm talking, John Paul. You have said several times, and you have brought it up as if we're heartless and we're not putting the money towards kids. We want to do everything we can to bolster our teaching staff. Every penny that we have, we want to give to our staff members. So it's not like we're not putting it towards kids who don't have the same goals and objectives. We have a little bit different way of going about what we think going about doing it. But if we don't do this, that is money that we're taking right out of the pockets of our staff, and because 85% of our budget is benefits and salaries. So they're difficult choices.
Comment as well. From the conversations that I've had with teachers and people in the community, I think many people would believe that they would like a reduction in class sizes, even in many instances over getting a raise. I don't think that anybody is necessarily saying somebody's heartless for laying off teachers, but we have to look at the end of the day at where are our priorities, and my priorities are with our teachers, and making sure that our teachers are taken care of, their class sizes are smaller, and that these kids are having that opportunity to get all of that educational attention from that teacher.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 5-1, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Superintendent's recommendation 124-17-18, continuing employment of administrative personnel. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the superintendent for the reemployment of administration personnel on a non-administrative tenure basis for a period of 2 years, July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020, subject to appropriate written notice of termination prior to June 30th, 2018, due to conditions requiring probation, layoff, reassignment, and/or personnel reduction and termination. The following are the administrators so reemployed. The list is in front of us. I so move.
Support. Been moved and supported. Any comments or questions? Mr. Pickett?
I'm looking through this list. Did Ken Milch retire, resign? I don't see him on this list.
This is next year, not the 18-19.
Well, I see all the other principals. He's not on here. Okay. All right. As far as this list goes, and I watched the last board meeting, DVR, I wasn't able to be there, and it didn't pass. There are most of the names on here, I think, are absolutely incredible, wonderful people that do an unbelievable, great job, and on top of the job they do are phenomenal people. And some of those people are here tonight. And for that reason, I would have a hard time voting against this recommendation. As much as I would want to, because I do believe there are a few people on this list that I don't think they've done such a good job in the last year. They've done some things that I really question. Most everybody on this list, they're absolutely incredible people. And I could not begin to vote against some of these people. I have made some conversation with Dr. Wunderlich. I will continue to, of course. It's his team of people. he makes the recommendation. We do have the option, it is our vote, to vote yes or vote no. But again, there's just too many good people on this list to vote against it. And so I will certainly be voting for that tonight.
Mr. Torres? Just echoing what Mr. Piggott said, there are a number of just awesome people on this list here. I think back to the importance of the building principals and what they do. I wholeheartedly support them. I have a child that's in college now. I have one that's going to be coming into the district very soon. And I just remember the fondness of the building principals and how hard they work, how much care they actually put into these kids. And it was kind of funny last year, my daughter and I, she was home from college and we were walking to the Memorial Day Parade. Right next to us was her former principal at Cooley Elementary, who has since retired. But my daughter's face just lit up, and so did the principal's face as well. And it was just such a fantastic moment because my daughter was now able to tell her what she's doing. And it just goes to show how hard these building principals work, how much care they put into these kids. And my daughter having gone through, just seeing how much they truly care about their students and how much they want to follow their lives. There are a number of just excellent people on this list. I don't agree with the list completely, but I'm not giving that option. I'm giving everybody all at once. And I can't take away the hard work of all these principals that are on here. I would like to see Mr. Milch on here as well. I don't see his name on here. I have heard great things about him, and he's even reached out to myself in the past. And I've heard of some of the great works that he's done, and I know there are a lot of principals, vice principals, administrators here in this district that do that. So I'm going to support this, but I don't necessarily agree with the entire list, but there are so many good people on here. Thank you.
June?
I just want to take this opportunity, we don't often get a chance to thank our staff members in a way that involves a vote. And I see so many of our administrators that are on this list sitting here with us tonight at a special meeting. They are in the buildings. They're the last ones to go home after a special event. They are at the sporting events. They are at the music concerts. They are there early in the morning. They are there when a child needs them. That doesn't have anything to do, sometimes even children that aren't in their own building. I have heard story after story after story that brings tears to my eyes, the work that our administrators do, and our staff members, our teachers, our bus drivers, our custodians, our food service workers, our secretaries, across the board. And it is those relationships with the children and that cultivated environment that is what makes Waterford such a special place to learn and grow. So I am just so supportive of this recommendation and could more wholeheartedly support it, and look forward to being able to cast a very loud and enthusiastic yes.
Any other comments? I just apologize for people on this list that this took two votes to happen. I do completely support this list, completely. It's not my role to individually evaluate you if you're on this list, no matter what job you have. That's not my role as a board. So, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. I think this is Jones.
Correct. Superintendent's recommendation is 125-17-18, resolution for the adoption by the Board of Education of the Waterford School District with the original budget for 2018-2019. Resolved that this resolution shall be the general appropriations, Waterford School District for the fiscal year 2018-19, a resolution to make appropriations, and to provide for the expenditure of the appropriations, and to provide for the disposition of all income received by the Waterford School District. The property tax rate will be 18 mills on non-homestead property. The proceeds will be used to pay general fund operating expenses. Be it further resolved that $98,040,631 is hereby appropriated in the general fund. Be it further resolved that $8,839,122 is hereby appropriated to the school service fund. Be it further resolved that $6,385,212 is hereby appropriated in the Special Education Center Program Fund. Be it further resolved that $16,322,888 is hereby appropriated in the Debt Retirement Fund. The appropriation details of this information item are available to the public upon request. I so move.
Support. Comments or questions?
I'd just like to thank our finance department, Danielle and Bill, and all the administration that's involved in this very tedious process of putting together a budget. It is not something that is taken lightly. And thank you for your time and your careful consideration and care of all the needs and issues within our district that need attention and putting together a budget that will appropriately address this.
There was a lot of people who made comments regarding funding, additional funding toward bullying and some of that type of stuff that's happened. I know back in March and April, we made national attention for the bullying problems. So I guess I know, John, you had talked some at the beginning about some of the items that are in our budget, but I'd like to ask, Dr. Wunderlich or somebody, what exactly after this all happened in March and April, and we started the bullying task force, and we realized, we heard a lot of things that I think Dr. Wunderlich even said he was shocked about. What did we add from that point on in here that wasn't in there before to help combat bullying and to help combat the issues that we heard from so many about? Specifically, I know we have stuff in there for that, but what did we specifically add after that fact that we did not have before to combat this problem?
The biggest chunk of money falling to federal is the $92,000 in Title IV that we allocated based on what we discovered with the data analysis that was just completed a week or so ago. And so I can't say exactly what will be implemented with that, but we have money that is set aside to work with that. We also are working very closely with Open Schools and Julie McDaniel, who is the bullying prevention expert at Open Schools, is working with us. And the two things the task force recommended, we did complete. We did a parent presentation, Bullying 101, on June 12th, and then we did a survey of students, staff, and parents. And she told us what the county data looks like. Now we'll be able to see where our data falls into that, and then that will point out are there holes in what we've done. We haven't got the allocation that will help us take care of that. Julie's also working with us on trauma-informed instruction. That's new, and that's something that I think a lot of people have brought up, that the student who may be the one picked on needs some assistance, but there also needs to be something for the student who was the perpetrator, so that we can change their behavior. And so that is new in place as well. Lisa could give us a rundown of all the different various things that we do for anti-bullying. Would you want to hear that, or just want to hear
mainly
the money amount?
Yeah, I think mainly the money, just because we had so many speakers that actually that was what they were speaking about, and it had concerns with the budget, so what was being added. So I guess, any information we can give them, that was the majority of the people that spoke, was about that. And I guess the more information we can give to those people, because they did ask, the better I think it would be, and perhaps they would feel more comfortable as well.
one of the summer projects is to, we want to have a web page that views all of the things we have in place, all the things that we're doing. Once we have the data, to put the data in there, and so that everyone in the public will be able to have a good indication of the things that we have in place right now, and what we're doing to address the problems.
So would you say, I'm sorry, would you say that at least 100,000 has been allocated since this situation happened that wasn't in there last year?
Right, we've got social workers working together this summer, and that's out of the 18-19 budget, and they're examining all of our bullying prevention curriculum, and they're taking a look at best practices as well, and they'll be able to come back to us and back to the task force with the information that they have too. So yeah, I would think that would put us over the $100,000 mark pretty easily.
And so that's all been added as a result of the actions that happened and us trying to combat this and do everything we can to fight that problem. Thank you.
I think, would it not be accurate to say, Dr. Wunderlich, that not necessarily all changes and things that we do necessarily cost money? It might just be a restructuring, it might be reevaluation of things, but not everything that we're going to do is necessarily going to cost thousands of dollars to do it. It just might be a restructuring or a redesign of how we're implementing things.
Very true. And like the working with open schools, why we pay a set amount to our intermediate school district anyway. This is a service that we're drawing on extra at no extra cost to us. We also started a relationship with Easter Seals and got them into our schools for mental health services for our students and their families. That also comes to us at no cost.
You said $92,000 in additional funding that we have appropriated through federal funds. Correct.
Title IV, yes.
And that is effective in this budget.
Correct.
And it will fund, you said social workers will be working this summer full time?
Yeah, that would be out of that same fund. But either working full time, no, I don't know.
And some, how many? Ballparks a week? Over the summer.
Part of that was funds came from this year's Title IV, which was much lower for next year. We also have customer so all told, just point out from my own perspective that bullying is not strictly a school issue. It is a combination of factors, and it does not fall strictly on the school to fix or address it. There's a lot going on that starts right at home, in your own homes, and I can cite example after example of adults who are teaching bullying to their children. So what we're having to do, in a lot of cases, is react to what kids are learning, in some cases, not all cases, at home. So I don't believe for 1 second that this falls strictly on the school district, solely in the school system to fix. This is a multi-faceted issue with a lot of contributing factors, not strictly what happens within the schools.
Mr. Torres?
So the monies in the federal funding, so the federal government was on a separate fiscal year, so beginning in October, so how does that play into this budget?
Grants run through September 30th, through July 30th, starts kind of like through the new year. When they say September 30th, that's really just to include any of those costs that you spend.
So the allocation of funds is going to be there.
It starts July 1st, and it runs actually, it's like a 14. And actually, 31 is a state grant, it's like a local grant, so that's not federal.
And the federal funding, what are the restrictions? Grants have restrictions, so what are the restrictions that they fall in? So there's 31A for the state, so not to put you on the spot, but I just need to know this. So what are the restrictions that are put forth on that, and the restrictions that are also the federal?
That we need to apply for those grants, and this is what we're going to do. They approve that. The grant has a title, it's for the staff. So anything between those contracts, those are met, so too many. But as long as you write grants, send it to our coordinator, kids service person, they approve it, and then we have to follow that plan. If we need to deviate from that plan for some reason, we need to get some participation in something like that's right. We simply amend the grant and have to say, okay, instead of using money this way, we need to. So it's just a checks and balances thing, but as long as we're using that on what they are allocated that fund for.
So just push a little more though, so I'm very familiar with grants, so when we're talking about the federal funding, is it specific for violence, or is it specific for what is encompassing of that, those dollars? What is under that umbrella title? Because I know with grants, especially at the federal level, they can be very picky about what you're utilizing those
So
money.
they're very uniform and there's something we're very used to working for. One of the things that Title IV that we're using it for is in the umbrella of safety, security, mental health services, all which is really supported. It's by their profession. So it falls right in line. But again, that's not the only thing we're using. We are using other funds, and Open Schools has not charged us for the specific training that they did. So a lot of that is behind the scenes. Not for the actual grants themselves, Title IV is using the work for the social workers and all of that. We're doing a case of social workers out of social retirements, etc. That's not a process.
There was a statement made by Borough President Himmelspot at the beginning of the meeting that our bullying is down 28% for our Michigan Department of Education. And just wondering where that number came from. And as a board vice president of the school board, is not informed of that.
I got it from Pete just moments before I got
Yeah, we
it,
just
so
got
I apologize.
this year's data. Again, it's the school infrastructure database, as it said, and it showed that our year-to-year subject to the numbers, and that's why we're trying to deal with that and getting those implementing further.
I agree, some more comment actually, what Ms. Hall said as well, that, the bullying and what it affects and how it transpires has a lot to do with what happens at home and what is happening at school, what the environment is in. Ms. Hall has a background working in prevention, early on prevention, and helping kids, and I do as well, working criminal justice for 16 years, social work and mental health. So for me, the bullying problem when it occurred back in March affected me profoundly because this is what I do. I specifically work with at-risk youth, and I have specifically worked with at-risk adults. And what I have found in 16 years as a public servant is that if you do not pay now, you're going to pay later. And it's going to be so much more later because now you're looking at lives that are being affected by it. We can't put all of the responsibility on the school, but the school does bear some responsibility. It is important that the schools, when they recognize that there's a problem, that they do step in. And we say the same thing in the court system. The court system is there, but we can't fix everything. But we can try to help the situation. And a lot of this has to deal not only with the child, it has to do with the family dynamic and working with the parents. Teaching the kids how to deal with trauma. Teaching the kids how to be resilient. Teaching the parents the same thing. Teaching them parenting skills. And can we do all of that as a district? In a perfect world, I would say that would be a fantastic thing. I got to put my faith in our administrators and our superintendent that when we have these monies, the $92,000 and really over that, $100,000 that we're pouring into 400 hours of social workers over the summer is an answer to the bullying problem that we had in this district. It's a pretty loud answer to it. We hope that it will correct the problem. We can only hope that. It'll probably maybe make a dent in it, but it's something that we have to systematically do and work towards. I do appreciate the conversation tonight because I don't think that the public and many people would have been aware of this plan. We would have asked the questions, and that's why I cannot stress how important it is as board members, as elected officials, that we ask the questions. Because when we ask the questions, the information is put out there. And when the information is put out there, then we have people to hold accountable. So I'm excited about what we will do and where we will go. As part of the bullying task force, I've heard a number of people at the beginning of the meeting talk about their work on the bullying task force and in some ways their disappointment with it. I would like to move, we would love to be able to do more work with it and to work to get more results, and it will come in time. But I think the main thing is that we really have to stay focused, and we have to continuously, ask the questions and hold myself, the other board members, and our administration accountable. Because at the end of the day, these are our kids, right? Even if you don't have kids in the district, if you live in this community, you're affected by these kids. And just as a human being, it's your responsibility to step up and to take care of these kids. And I'm really happy about the fact that we're making some movements. We're pushing forward. And I'm hoping that the results are good. Thank you.
I just want to express some level of frustration as well. I heard a lot of anger tonight again. We are living in an angry, divided culture right now. It is an angry world out there. It is a divided world. It is a world that you see that divisiveness and that anger on television, on the reality shows, in the music, in the TV talk shows. And it's very frustrating to me when I heard comments tonight like, it's just business as usual, you just want to dust this under the rug, certain members of the board have just ignored this, your response hasn't been a sense of leadership. Those kinds of comments are really not fair to all the work that has taken place in this district to push us forward. And I just want to make sure that the message is at least heard, that we heard you, we took it seriously, our administration took it seriously, and they have put money, they have put time, they have put resources, they have put a plan, and they continue to work for a thoughtful, multifaceted plan to address the issue. I also know that this is an incredibly emotional issue. I bet there isn't a person in here that hasn't been bullied. And I've heard many people even tonight, and again, I've been in each of the sessions as well, where you recant your own bullying experiences because it stays with you. You don't forget it. I don't forget it. You don't forget it. It stays with you. It's a very emotional thing. And so we all want an answer, and we want it now. And we want someone to fix it. And I heard the comments, you better step it up. I demand more of you. You need to fix this. There is no you, folks. There is no you. We cannot do this alone. There is only us. There is only we. It is a community issue. It is a societal issue. And yes, it is an issue in our schools. But we have to work together. And if you're thinking that there's some silver bullet that we have where we can magically fix this problem, I'm sorry, that is just not the case. We are going to work as hard as we can to affect change and to have a positive and in all cases safe learning experience for the children that are entrusted to us in this district. But it takes hard work on everybody's part. So I just want to commend the members of the board, the administration, and the task force, and all of the parents who have poured their heart and souls into this issue, and who continue to work in a positive way to affect change. Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.